Good morning and welcome to another live Super Rugby watch along with the Under the Six crew presented by Big Red Cloud. Visit www.bigredcloud.com for all your online accounting needs. Gentlemen, we are not doing Super Rugby Aotearoa this morning. We have Super Rugby AU. And Sean Holley, you are definitely in the mix with the Wallabies jersey on. Paul Williams, you clearly have been stringing rackets all morning with your Wilson top.
This is Jeff Wilson. This is New Zealand. This is.
We're going to say Harry Wilson.
And the one man who is not in daylight at the moment because he is down in Australia. It is friend of Sean Holley and a big fan of Under the Sticks because we see him commenting and interacting with us in these live watch-alongs. It's Andrew Swain or Swaino.
Swaino or Swainy. For all our listeners out there who don't know Andrew, all the boys and girls out there, this is Andrew Swain of Fox Sports Australia, World Rugby commentator, producer, former second row from a very historic club and all-round brilliant bloke. We're delighted to have you on, Swainy, because it's our first Aussie game. There was a cracker yesterday that I'm sure people watched, and to have an expert like you and such a top bloke, we're delighted to welcome you to Under the Sticks.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, gents. And I have been a big fan. I've enjoyed the watch-alongs with Super Rugby Aotearoa, and now I'm looking forward to getting involved in this Brumbies Rebels chat. Last night, Reds v Waratahs, it was a belter to start. I really enjoyed it, and I'll be watching along with a beer and a Wallabies stubby holder. So nice. There you go.
And tell us, mate, the famous club that I intimated there. Who did you play for?
Yeah, played at the Brothers Rugby Club in Brisbane back in the day, a long time ago now. And it is a famous club. John Eales is famously from the Brothers Rugby Club. Right now, quite a lot of Queensland Reds players are from there. Fraser McWright, Harry Wilson, a couple of the young guns. Taniela Tupou's from Brothers as well.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it's got a long and really steeped history that club. So. The famous blue and white, they call us the filth if you're not from Brothers because not a lot of people like them. So
right, okay. Just to give a level of your expertise, because Swainy and I commentated on the World Under-20s champs last summer, and a lot of those guys that people might have watched yesterday for the Waratahs and the Reds came through that Under-20s team the last 2 years. Just give us a level of your expertise, Swainy. I want you to pronounce who was the winger. Who's the winger for the Queensland Reds last night? Come on.
It was for the Waratahs.
Sorry, for the Waratahs.
No, Wanganita-Wasi.
So, there you go.
He's got the Fijian name. Marky Mark is what a lot of people like to call him, but you got to get them right. You got to get the names right. Wanganita-Wasi. So, and we had to say that quite a lot at the Under-20s World Champs last year, didn't we?
Well, I let you say it.
Try in the final against France. So. It was good times, and it was great to be in Rosario with Shauno, and him striking up the guitar and singing in the Jekyll and Hyde bar just nearby. So
he's in his element then. I can picture that.
We had a bit of a duet thing going, didn't we, Shauno?
Yeah, we did, mate. It was like Oasis on acid.
He's the new Max Boyce, Swainy. That's what he's going for.
Swainy had this cracking rendition of Don't Look Back in Anger, which it was a bar that you turn up and it's a session bar. Anybody could just rock up with a guitar or a voice and crack in. But we'd normally roll in there after a hard day's commentaries, 3 or 4 games, probably half full of a spirit called Fernet, which is a speciality of Argentina. It's very strong. The first one tastes pretty horrible, but by about the 10th, you don't look back in anger.
Your whole mouth and throat is just numb by the 10th one, so you can't feel anything. It's great. It's great. Yeah, it's good times in Argentina if you haven't been.
That sounds like embalming fluid for the living.
It's not far off. It's a thick black liquid. I reckon it's very close.
Oh God!
Formaldehyde.
The comments are coming in nice and quickly already this morning, and one of the latest ones is when's kickoff? Kickoff is in about 3 minutes, so we've now got pictures of the boys in the Brumbies sheds doing their big squeeze beforehand. So we've completely missed the lineups. We don't know if Swaino is 7 minutes ahead of us or not, but we should be pretty aligned. Paul, if you could actually, watch when a try is scored this week, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I'll try my best this week.
Yeah, we've missed a few lately.
Well, we got some nice. We got some nice comments already. James Reed is a weekly follower of us.
Yeah.
He says 3 weeks ago, I basically knew nothing about Super Rugby. Paul gave me a lovely rundown of the New Zealand teams. Must have had a good day. Any chance Swaino can do me the same for Super Rugby Australia, who are the Wallabies? So, who's the ones to look out for today, Swaino?
Oh, good question. Look, Noah Loloseo, who was one of the under-20s last year, Shauno, playing 10 for the Brumbies. Big raps on this young bloke. He had a really good start to the Super Rugby season earlier in the year before the lockdown. We only played 7 rounds, and he was really a standout. So he's been really good. The Brumbies have been the standout team in the Australian Conference, and so they'll be hard to beat tonight. And it's Matt Tamua's 100th Super Rugby match tonight. They're counting the stats as they would in any other comp. So for these competitions, so it is his 100th Super Rugby match tonight, and he had a couple of seasons over at Leicester as well. You guys would have seen a bit of him over there. So yeah, he's come back, and that's what the Rebels really needed, some direction. So Matt Tamua's been able to provide that, I think. Who else to look out for?
There's a couple of crackers names who people who will follow the Wallabies, or when they come over to the Northern Hemisphere. You've got Kurandrani playing in the centre, obviously for the Brumbies. Dane Haylett-Petty's at fullback for the Rebels. Reece Hodge in the centre. Matumua, you mentioned, and of course Korobetti, who I thought was one of the best Wallabies players in the Japan World Cup, sort of lit it up. So we've got the potential here of having some thrills and spills. We've got to watch out for the Brumbies loosehead. He tends to lose his feet a little bit, Swaino.
The Brumbies loosehead. Yeah, Slipper. One of the greats, actually. That's a good one, mate. Good start. Check that one off.
Oh, it's going to be a long one. Holly's not brought the
you know what? James Slipper has had a new lease on life going to Canberra. He had some problems up at Queensland and some drug problems and went to Canberra. They gave him a second chance, and he's really made every fist a winner down there. So that Brumbies front row is pretty formidable. Slipper, Fainga, and Ala Alatoa. So yeah, it's going to be it'll be actually a pretty good battle up front tonight. It looks like a pretty inexperienced Rebels front row, and so I think the scrums were getting set pretty quickly last night in the Reds Waratahs game too. There was, it just felt like the game was faster. So the new laws have been good.
Well, we've just got kickoff now, so we're up and running. But yeah, I'm glad you pointed out. So yesterday,
the new laws.
Something of a traditional battle. We had New South Wales against Queensland, and we actually got to see the debut of the 50-22 and the 22-50 rules, amongst a few other new interpretations. And the first one that occurred, it wasn't contrived whatsoever. It was a bit of heads-up play by the Reds scrum half, and he's popped one just from inside his own half over the defense, and it's bobbled out into the 22. Now, they didn't make anything of it. They got the line out, but that's what we're going to see today, Swaino. And we were talking to Sean about it during the week. From your point of view, do you think this is going to make a really big difference, or do you think we're just going to see a little bit more space in the backfield and defensive areas? How do you think teams are going to approach it?
Yeah, I don't think you'll see it as much as we probably saw it last night. Like I think they were probably a couple of lucky kicks when the Reds pulled them off. But what it does do is it does drag open up the space down the edges a little bit. And what I really liked about it was that it encourages some attacking kicking, which the Wallabies and Australian rugby have really struggled with in previous years. But also, instead of watching like kicking for territory and then watching a team have to attack out of their half, it just keeps the attack going. So you got the attacking team still in attacking territory having a crack. And I really liked that. Not that the Queensland Reds really pulled that off last night, but it keeps a team attacking rather than a team having to then exit their half.
That's a really good point, isn't it? Because it gives you, like you say, it gives you that option then to keep going. It gives you, it's not like you're just kicking and giving up. You've got that one last chance to this ping. And especially with guys like Tamua, I'm a massive fan of Tamua. And he's got it. That's what his strength was when he's playing in the centre, his kicking game. The fact that he can put in those little through kicks. So I think he could be quite influential today.
As Angus Gardner's penalised 2 penalties in the first 2 minutes, one for the attacking team, one against. Lovely little movement.
Ball. And a little camera. Oh, I love that inside ball.
Well, there's 2 set plays they did in succession. They did like what we would call an 11 play. They go one way off the line out and they come straight back the other way with a little run around with a scrum half. And then they got the penalty, and that's teed up for Andrew Muirhead to come in on the inside. That's a lovely. When you see that as a coach, you're just like, oh, just have a little look. Now we got the replay coming on. Great take in the line now, a little run around, and then the inside ball. Great skill coming in. Fainga.
Oh, Fainga, that's brilliant.
Isn't that gorgeous?
I love the little look back as well as he's in mid-air putting that one dead.
Sean, I could look how simple that is.
What about the celebration from Fainga as soon as he threw the inside ball? He's just thrown the hand in the air. Brilliant.
I tell you what, you've got to make sure you don't drop that ball, though, if you're doing a flashy dive like that.
So he leaves it in the air, though. He knows the winger's coming at pace and an angle, so he just pops it in the air. It's not a hard pass, so he can just run onto it. It's lovely.
Sean, when one of your boys walks into the dressing room with facial furniture like that and a haircut like that, you got to be pretty confident he's got to do something.
Yeah, always, mate. You have to. It's in the office job. Say, mate. Question 1: are you serious? Question 2: is it a bet? Question 3: is it a charity? Question 4: do you think it looks good? Question 5: do you think your missus thinks it looks good? If all the answers to those questions are yes, then you then have to produce. But beautifully worked. Look at the outside run from looks like Kurandrani, so he attracts the outside defenders. There'll be more to that because the hooker off the back will need to go to the hooker. It's the second out defender that's probably been blocked. I'll have to have a look at that. The backlift has probably come across and just blocked the second defender to allow Muirhead to get through. So really good. Just to go back to the kicking discussion, I think you're right, Adam, that there was a couple of by default last night or yesterday for us. But I think once the coaches and players start to see those default things happening, they'll start putting it into their tactical elements, I think.
Okay.
There we go. There's a point here I want to make as well, and there's also some good comments coming in. I love this from James Reed. The mid-air mug off was excellent. Very good. One of the points I was going to make actually, because I'm watching the game yesterday between the Reds and the Waratahs. For out of the gates, I thought it was a pretty decent game. I thought, maybe some of the attacking areas, the plays broke down in 22, but reasonably encouraging for a first hit out. And then just watching this morning, watching the Highlanders and the Crusaders, guys, if anyone was up watching that, please leave your comments, tell us what you thought. Some brilliant stuff in that game. But what I thought is we're into round 3 or round 4 with Super Rugby AU, and those guys are in full flight right now. They are absolutely at the gates. And this is quite encouraging for when Guinness Pro 14 and the Premiership comes back and stuff like that. We can see that these guys, and like that first try today, that is set piece perfection from the training ground.
Yeah.
I'm almost at the moment hoping that Wales don't play New Zealand in the autumn because they're having an amazing pre-season and a start to it. And just when I was smelling blood, same with the Wallabies, you've got all these youngsters coming through again, a bit of free reign and trying out these new laws and stuff. And they look at the conditions as well. That's a perfect set of conditions out there in Canberra to play. So I agree. It's great to see. It's great that we've got this live sport, and it's going to encourage us big time in the Guinness Pro 14. I think all the boys are chomping at the bit. The guys I've spoken to, they understand all the restrictions, but they just can't wait to get in the mix.
I've spoken to a couple this week, and they seem very keen.
Do tell, Paul. Come on.
I don't drop names. You know me, Adam.
I'm surprised that you just don't have a T-shirt printed with who I saw in Cardiff this week. You know.
Well, do you know, Pontcanna? So, Andrew, the little bit of Cardiff I live in is where most of the players, even if they don't play in Cardiff, all the Kiwis and Australians move into this area called Pontcanna.
It's why Hadley Parks decided to move.
This trendy little bit of Cardiff. So all of the Kiwis and a lot of the Welsh squad live around there. So if you nip out for some bread, you bump into about 400 caps of Test players.
Can I just welcome Jasmine Smith? Great interaction from Jasmine this morning. I think she might be new to us, but she's obviously on the ball with her rugby, hoping that Dave Rennie can bring some manner to the Wallabies and have them to be competitive again. NZ needs them to step up, and I want them to at least win one Bledisloe game a year. It's a transition period, Swainy, isn't it? But it's a positive one because Dave Rennie's going there. I'm sure Jono's doing some serious work behind the scenes, upsetting people in Australian rugby, and then these under-20s coming through. We could see in a year or two's time another sort of glorious period for Wallaby rugby.
Absolutely. Look, the green shoots are there for Australian rugby at the moment. There's trouble and there's dramas. Don't get me wrong, but there is, there are definitely some great signs there. 3 points there for the Rebels off Matty Tamua's boot. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to Dave Rennie coming. From all reports, a really fantastic bloke. The Michael Cheika era was a really interesting one here. It started with a bang, right? We made a World Cup final here.
What they said in Dublin and Paris.
I don't think he's not a long-term coach. I don't think he's not a long-term signing.
He's a culture changer.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then demolisher.
Yeah, and he did that, and he galvanized a group of guys for a really, really concentrated period, and then the wheels came off, and then the tumble turns started happening down the hill, and it was it was like watching a car crash at times, late in the piece, and through no lack of trying though, like he Czech always has a crack. But there needed to be a reset, and so now we're going to get that in Australian rugby with nearly the intercept there, with Dave Rennie, and I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, Scott Johnson, you're right, Sean. I reckon he's probably ruffling a few feathers.
That's what he does, yeah.
Because that's what he does. But I think that with this young group of players now coming through, the real key now is to keep them, because Super Rugby as of next year doesn't exist at the moment. There is no Super Rugby next year, so it's keeping them away from the grubby hands of the NRL rugby league down here.
But that's often the problem, because a lot of people up here, even if they do watch a lot of Super Rugby, they tend to veer towards Kiwi Super Rugby, only because it's not being offensive. The quality of that over the last 5 seasons has been a lot higher.
Something as well. I think people as well, it's easier for, no matter what your lifestyle is, to watch a game at 8 o'clock in the morning than 10 o'clock.
Exactly, that's right, because you're feeding the kids, if you've got family or whatever. But they aren't aware of the difficulties in Australian rugby, because we've chatted about it on the podcast on a Wednesday. So the political climate and the situation it's been in now with the new chief execs, the massive swathes in pay cuts that have come across the board. And of course, the franchise is swapping seemingly every 2 or 3 seasons, one go in or one come in. And then the other big thing, of course, that people don't realise is how low down the pecking order rugby union is in Australia.
Yeah,
it's difficult for us to understand in Wales, because it is number one. Soccer's trying to punch through. Everyone, Sean follows Liverpool, and everyone's got a club. Sorry, oh God, Jesus! Look, do you see his face?
17-2, that is.
If he could have punched me through the camera, he would have. But yeah, they don't realise, because of course, and particularly, I remember one of my friends telling me that all of the long, lean athletes get swept up by Aussie rules.
Absolutely. So, if you pulled all the athletes from all those sports, from basketball, from Aussie rules, from rugby league, the Wallabies, like, they'd be, I wouldn't say they'd be unbeatable, but they would be a heck of a lot stronger than they are now. And they still, they're still competitive, the Wallabies, but like, if they had those guys, they'd be really, really hard to beat, and they'd be pushing the All Blacks every year, and that's the other thing, that the Wallabies have to play the All Blacks 3 times a year, at least, the general public, the casual viewer in Australia, they watch the Wallabies get beaten by the All Blacks in the first test of the year, which is always the first test of the year. It's the All Blacks, and they go, "Oh, the Wallabies stink again," and they switch off.
Yeah, of course.
And it's really hard to capture the hearts and minds down here.
Yeah.
Which and that's what they've got to do.
And a lot of people, particularly in the UK and Ireland, will find it hard to believe that Australian rugby struggled to get a TV deal. Didn't it? Until recently, it didn't. It still hasn't even got like a proper finance TV deal, which is, it just seems peculiar, because we always think of us Wallaby rugby as being really competitive. Yeah. So with Wales, you are, the last 10 years, Wales and Australia, I think the average has been like 3 or 4 points each. It's always been that 1920. His last minute tries, bloody Curtly Beale. So it's I think it'd be interesting for people, especially having you on the show, to get that broader picture of Wallaby rugby.
Yeah, I mean, it still is fighting. It's still alive and kicking. And at a grassroots level, rugby is really, really going great guns in Australia at the moment. The Shoot Shield, which is the Sydney club competition, been going since 1908, and it's had a renaissance of sorts. It's, people would rather go and watch a game, Manly versus Warringah, the Battle of the Peninsula up north, the Battle of the Beaches. They'd rather go and watch that at 3 o'clock on a Saturday arvo than go to a Waratahs game where they're in a big stadium, which is 3/4 empty, where they have to pay $9 for a mid-strength beer, and they can't run around out on the field.
Yeah, and then get thumped by the Kiwis.
I was saying on the End of the Sticks podcast a few weeks ago now, because I was fortunate enough to play out in Australia, Swain, as you know, Uni New South Wales, and the difference with going to a Super Rugby game is, okay, you rock up and you pay your money, and it's probably I don't know, maybe $10 for beer now or whatever, but go to Manly Warringah and all the grades play one after another on the same day, Andrew, don't they?
They do.
Really?
If you're in, like,
that's interesting.
When I first went over, I only made the second grade, and then I got into the first grade. But like, people come to watch the fourth grade, then the third grade, and the second grade, and the first grade is the highlight at the end. By then, everybody's had a few beers, None of this mid-strength nonsense that they've got to drink now. Mid-strength, for those who don't know, is at sporting events in Australia, you're only allowed to drink a certain percentage of alcohol. So, like, me and my mates went to watch the Ashes a couple of years ago. Took us a full 12-hour shift to get there. We wanted
25 pints.
Yeah, we wanted to get there by mid-afternoon session with the Barmy Army, but
and your pockets would have been empty by the end as well, because it cost $9 for a beer.
So what strength beer is that then? Like 2.5% or something?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's between 2.5% and 3.5%.
Oh God!
You're like drinking Shandy Bass over here,
Oh,
it's Oh, look, there's only one really good mid-strength beer down here in Australia, and it's 4X Gold, and I actually love it. It's great.
It's gold, mate.
It's gold. The rest of them are not very flash. I'm drinking this is a brand new one, actually, brand new brewery. It's called Union Lager. So like rugby union from Balmain.
Shameless plug.
You're not going to Guinness there, no Guinness.
Different market. Well, hang on, Tamua's got another shot at goal.
Yeah,
they're sort of edging their way back into this, the Rebels. After.
Do you know what I must say?
Oh.
Do you know what I must say, Matt? Oh, that's some bend on that. We've been talking about haircuts in Super Rugby Aotearoa. Matt Tamua, that's a good, sensible haircut for.
That's a Superman. That's a Clark Kent. We're happy with that.
It's a haircut you could set your watch to.
It is. That is a haircut of a 10 who's confident in his ability. That's like a Dan Carter, I'm good enough. I don't need the hair, the stupid hair.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
interested.
for 80 minutes.
It's when
I'm interested to see Lolesio, the 10 for the Brumbies. He had the old top deck going in isolation because I saw him previously, but he's gone back to the sensible.
Paul, have you managed to get yourself to a hairdresser's this week?
Not yet. I tweeted a picture of myself last night. I combed
saw
my
it.
hair
I couldn't
down. I
sleep
looked.
last night.
It's ridiculous. I
It
don't
was
know
like
why I
coming out of the
tweeted that. I
Stone
don't know, it's
Roses.
thinking. I know. I look like a fat, tall Ian Brown without the talent.
You said that, mate. You
Mate.
saved me from saying it.
I know. I am nothing but self-deprecating, Sean. You know that.
Couple of shout outs. We got our resident Tuesday Club co-host Kyle Rees on. Morning, Kyle. James Reid is never present for us. We mentioned Jasmine. Nice to see Michael Jenkins down in Pembrokeshire and Wales. Very wet and windy down here today. And WH Fitness. Nice to see you guys. Let's get more on. Get your comments in. Get your questions into us. We got Swainy this week, who's an expert. I should have said, at the start that Swainy's big on the domestic rugby, the club rugby in Australia. So. I'd love that. It's a great environment in adversity, and in light of, and it's not just cricket, rugby league, Aussie rules. You think swimming is huge in Australia, Swainy, isn't it?
Basketball's massive, isn't it? Now?
Athletics, soccer is really sort of elevated there now. Angus Gardner, arm up.
It's interesting going back to some of the points we were making earlier on, and we can track this back to some of the conversations that we were having early in lockdown, and people who in some ways should know better, commenting in public, let's get the pros back playing with the amateur clubs and stuff like that.
Can you imagine?
And you're just like, no, that. Look, I know where you're going, but it's not the answer, because guys are going to get seriously hurt if you're going to start throwing international tight heads into.
Did you see a picture of Sean O'Brien yesterday on Twitter?
He's not small. He's not small.
Oh my God, he looked like He-Man.
I did see that picture actually.
He looked like He-Man. His body fat must be like 5% or something ridiculous.
I like that.
Definitely been in the gym.
If guys have taken this time, who some of them like the gym, like training, and they've realised, like there's some players we discussed on Wednesday night on Under the Sticks, that some like Alan Wynne-Jones may benefit from this break, because he'll always say yes, he'll always play, but now he's been an enforced break, and these guys are going to come back in mint condition. It's going to be really excited to see the athleticism going on, and that's going to improve the rugby, isn't it? Clearly.
What I'm actually interested from from Swano's point of view is, I think in Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, it's trickier to get semi-pro to feed in directly to pro. Really, it's under 20s or under 23s if you really wanted to do it, and they've got to be in a pro environment. But the setups between, say, ITM Cup or Mitre 10 Cup as it is now, I think in New Zealand, you mentioned the Shoot Shield and things like that in Australia, Swainy. I mean, is there a case to be said that in whatever shape Super Rugby takes in the future, and whether that's less countries, but maybe that they work it, that you have that stepping up domestic tournament, then you play your local pro derbies, and then you play maybe cross Tasman or something like that? Do you think that could be the future in terms of those levels up and building blocks? Because you could probably put the Shoot Shield on Fox or wherever it is, because the talent should be there, and the technology to show games has never been cheaper, as we can show right now. We're doing a live stream from Wales, Ireland, and Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. I found it interesting saying you guys shouldn't. You were saying that they shouldn't let the pro players go back and play club rugby. Well, here club rugby is it's actually quite a high standard in terms of it's semi-pro. I'd probably say Shoot Shield. So when guys come back from Super Rugby and play Shoot Shield, it's not that they should stand out, but a lot of them don't. And so I definitely think that the stepping stones, the pathway to a gold jersey is really important. People should, a young kid who's just coming out of school, or 17-year-old coming out of school, should know what steps they need to take to get to that gold jersey and to stay to keep them in the game, basically. So I mean, we had a competition which they've cancelled this year, but it was called the NRC, National Rugby Championship, and it it was the stepping stone between club rugby and Super Rugby, and they played a tournament at the end of the year. They played it for probably the last 8 years.
That's a good standard, isn't it? That
great standard of footy. The actual rugby was brilliant to watch.
Yeah,
I've called a lot of it, and it was great to watch. It was highly entertaining, and it was very much like club rugby in that. There was squads were kind of that guys that hadn't quite made the Wallabies, and then you had the odd sort of club player stepping up to play the next level, and but the problem was cut through, right? It was the marketing around it. It was tribalism. No one really knew who these manufactured teams were, so they weren't interested. That was the hardest thing.
In the kind of idea that I was sort of portraying there to you as well. I mean, you see, if that's captured under a broadcast umbrella, which brings you along the way. So, for example, up here, Sky Sports show you Super Rugby. They'll also show you the Mitre 10 Cup.
Yes.
And if they can do the equivalent with Australia, and they'll get people who'll watch it. But if you bundle all of that in, it's like, right, well, you're going to take Super Rugby for 5 months of the year. We're going to give you these other competitions as well. And like, who doesn't want international exposure for the competitions?
ITM is amazing.
Yeah,
100%.
The standard of that. I think there's proper All Blacks playing in that.
Yeah, that's the issue. I think
All Blacks anyway.
I think the strength in depth is the issue. So there's a lot of strength in depth in New Zealand. England, you've got a championship which is strong. So you've got a number of players that migrate then to the Premiership from the Championship, and they have a Premiership A League on a Monday night, which is very strong, and you can blood academy players in that. Ireland have a great school system, but then people like Ireland A, Munster A, they blood teams in the British and Irish Cup as it was, but because the internationals are looked after, then they get runs in the provincial teams in crucial times. So there's that. You think of Wales and Scotland, right? Like in Wales, we have a Welsh Premiership. It's shown on terrestrial TV, and people love it, but the standard isn't great because we've allowed that to happen by not allowing the squad players to come back and play in that competition. And I've said this oftentimes during my time coaching in the Ospreys, Rhys Webb, Justin Tippick, Ashley Beck, James King all went and played. James Hook, Dan Bigger, they all went and played in that Welsh Premiership to strengthen that. That becomes a better product. They learn to play rugby. For some reason, we haven't allowed our young academy players to play as much in that. They don't get good runs in the regional teams. And therefore, we suffer. That gap is getting bigger and bigger. Same in Scotland. Where do you play? If you don't play for Edinburgh or Glasgow, you play in a Scottish league, which is similar to the Welsh Premiership. The step is too big then. And so those players end up going and playing in England to get there.
If you look, the key thing there is population, isn't it? With us in Scotland, we're such a small...
Well, you can't say that about New Zealand, though, can you?
No, well, when you add in all the islands...
Yeah, they're 3 academies.
You know what I'm saying? I don't like saying that. I don't like saying that because you do get in trouble for saying that from Kiwis, but I'm a long way away now.
Yeah, but also rugby union's the only game there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's nothing else.
There's nothing else.
They try and push basketball, don't they? But
exactly.
You see it on New Zealand sports feeds, but no one really cares.
To get back to the game, we talked the 50-22 Swainy. Other interesting developments have been the inability to mark a high ball in your 22 if a kick is in the 22. So I suggested in the week we may start to see some rugby league style crossfield kicks, last tackle bombs. Didn't see that a lot. Yes, they haven't seen a lot because most of the game has been played in the middle of third year. Do you expect some rugby league influence there?
Definitely. I mean, we had a guy playing for the Wallabies for quite a few years by the name of Israel Folau, who I just don't understand why we didn't kick to him all the time on the
every time.
Every time. Because he's a guy who could fly through the air like Michael Jordan, catch a ball in one hand, and score a try in one movement. And so it was just never used. And look, it's spectacular. It's good to watch. I do miss the old centre field, not even centre field, like just the attacking bomb in the 22. Like I hope we get to
under the posts.
Yeah, 100% landed on the crossbar.
If you can't mark it now, sticking one underneath the upright, that's a nightmare.
100%. That was actually, who came up with that law was Matt Tamua. He was the one. He was on the committee, and he suggested that, and they adopted it.
Really?
Yeah. So
Here's a
What did I
chance.
tell you about the haircut? All good.
yeah, exactly. Smart guy. If they get the opportunity, I'd love to see him have a crack. He probably will, I'd say.
Oh, you must be loving this, Swino. Look at this maul.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
They've had a good maul for a couple. They've had a good maul for a few seasons now, haven't they, Swain?
The Brumbies have, and Powell scores the try here. The Brumbies, that's been one of the criticisms of them a little bit down here has been that they've only got a maul.
Too much,
I think Dan McKellar has actually, coached that out of them a little bit, but they still go back to it, and it's so strong. And Dan McKellar will end up being, he will be on the Wallabies coaching staff.
Yeah.
And for this reason, because he coaches this.
Look how long this maul is. Look how long it is, and all the body heights are the same. I mean, people can say what they like. If they're scoring from maul,
I love it.
Brilliant.
But, I think that's what's made the Brumbies one of the more competitive against the Kiwis in this awful period that they've had over the last, has been that maul, because at least it's reliable.
Yeah.
And you haven't got it. I think half the trouble with the Aussie Super Rugby teams, the last 5 seasons, they've been trying to compete with the Kiwis. It's spinning it all the time.
Do you know what made that maul there, Paul?
What's that?
Lolesio, the outside half.
Oh, really? I wasn't.
Yeah,
what did he do? Oh, did he drop it to the back? Did he?
Yeah, honestly, right. Sean Connor, the old 10 for the Ospreys and the Dragons, and that, he was the best leg drive mauler you ever seen in your life.
12 stone jammed in the back.
Because backs, when they're asked to go into a maul, because they technically don't understand too much, they just drive their legs like crazy, like the Antill Mob. Remember that cartoon?
Yeah, they do. And they rarely go forward. It's more up and down, isn't it? As opposed to.
But I'm glad we saw a try there, because Angus Gardner was man of the match at the moment.
Oh, conversion off the post. So,
and you know, I think that's where I think that's where the Aussie Super Rugby squads have gone wrong, Spain, in a way that the South African squads didn't. So they didn't bother trying that, did they? They just said, right, we'll do it all up front, and they had more joy.
We'll play to our strengths, and we'll win games.
Exactly.
I think the Brumbies are one team that just. I think they're the best coached team in Australia. There's no doubt about that. Oh, Slipper.
Here he goes.
Yeah, he said, told you to watch out for him.
True.
The lock in midfield.
Those
Big
two
Murray
people
Douglas.
panicking about being in open space and trying to get rid of the ball.
I love it, man. When you see a lock cross the halfway line at full speed, and they just think, what am I going to do now?
There's the difference between the top scrum halves, right? He's just skipped this pass. Watch now, great break from Slipper. But second row,
that's Murray Douglas. He's played up in the UK, I believe. He's Scottish.
See that little step? Watch the scrum half now, right? Just this little step. That's got to go. Just get it rid. He hasn't set his feet the right, and that's a great decision from the 12. Bill Meeks. Just a little thing.
Yeah. So what do you coach there then, Sean? So is that
he has to set his feet.
And pass.
He has to set his feet correctly. How he approaches that ball, he's got excited. His feet are too close together. He stumbled. That delay is enough. Try gone.
Yeah.
So to put that in perspective, when we talk about the basics, or Paul, you wrote about this in your column not too long ago. It's ensuring that fundamental, those core skills are embedded in your brain and in your muscles. So that when the game opens up like that, you've got an opportunity. You don't get ahead of yourself, and the adrenaline doesn't, overthink it or make a mistake like that. And when you watch, there was an overthrown line out this morning, Highlanders, Crusaders, and Aaron Smith was onto it like Usain Bolt, and he was straight up, and he took 2 defenders out, got the offload away, and it set up a score for the Highlanders.
He's next level, though, isn't he? That lad is next level.
Yeah. Kind of like you've got to be thinking, and you got to be able to be calm when you get the opportunity, and you got to move at 100 miles an hour. And I thought as well there was a tip on this morning for one of the Crusaders tries in the second half, and oh my gosh, it was Cody Taylor, and it was a tip on, and it made the try. And if he'd taken it with 2 hands and shoved it, the guy would have ended up in touch. It was incredible skills. And I think to us, that's probably what we look to Super Rugby for. That
Yes, it is.
you expect that from the hookers and the front rowers, that they have those skill sets.
Who threw the pass? Cody Taylor, did you say?
So there was a long pass, and Cody Taylor just let it bounce off his finger to flick it out, and it was this is.
I think Cody Taylor's almost the player that sums up how good Kiwi rugby is, because he's not even Dane Coles, and he's still brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Cody Taylor's at a level that he'd be, walking away with test caps. But
was that a 50-22, or is it? Must have been in the other half.
Yeah, I think it's just outside.
See, but that's something that showed me. See the flanker there.
No, he's in his own half.
Yeah,
Hang
but
on.
you can't pass it back into your own half.
Oh, he's passed back in, of course.
Yeah, he's passed it back in.
But you saw the Rebels open side there made moves as if he was going to take a quick throw. And if you've got some speedy 3/4 lines, and you can get those guys to the kicks, imagine taking a quick line out when you've just won a 50-22.
You know what, mate?
No
that's a really good point, because I one of my sayings was never chase lost causes. But having said that, things like kicks, you never know what can happen. They could bobble in, they could hold up in field. So I really used to encourage our guys to chase in numbers and go all out, even to stop the quick throw. But now you're right, you can flip that and get there, pick the ball up, throw it in, try time. If you're lazy getting back,
speeds the game up. You're getting guys on the front foot straight up, and also you're actually creating by default in that respect fatigue as well.
Yes, because they have to chase then, don't they?
Because guys have to chase back. Yeah, of course. Back.
Well, you look at Will Jordan last week. Nobody saw him run onto that ball. He ran about 40 meters onto a short line. I don't even. Cameras weren't even looking at him.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, I'm telling you now, when Sean gets back into coaching, I've definitely got a shot at the backroom team ahead of you.
Am I going back in? Am I going back in?
No, when you
come
get
down to Australia, mate, it's beautiful. Weather's beautiful, Sean.
I think that would be one of the few jobs I would go back into. I would go and coach in Australia. I would, particularly where you are, Sydney, Swainy.
Chatting to Paul Dawn as we speak, mate, the CEO of the Waratahs.
Are you my agent? Can you be my agent?
Get him in.
Finder's fee.
I'll design you an ad campaign, Sean. We'll have you all over the networks.
I could still do Under the Sticks on Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, mate. It's dark here, but it's still, early enough.
Good to see you on the beer, mate, and you've got your bottle of wine situated ready for half time.
So this bottle of wine, again, I don't want to be a plugger here, but this is Drew Mitchell, Adam Ashley Cooper, and
really?
Those wine, Backline Wines. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's a bottle of that. Drew gifted it to us, which was lovely of him.
So anyone in Australia watching, just leave a comment and we'll get in touch with you with Sean's list, with his rider list and the areas he'd like to live in.
I've been thinking about that. Lockdown, I've been thinking, if approached, which jobs would I consider? Obviously, the Barbados. Barbados Barbarians.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If Big Leo give me a ring, I'd be hard pushed to turn Dublin down and the Blues, Leinster.
What about the new American franchise, the Gin-Teenies or whatever they're called?
Yeah, I've spoken to you before about the Vegas one, which Shane and I were sort of tentatively approached about. That scared me. I didn't contemplate that too much.
No, that sounds dodgy, that does. Do you want to come here and start a rugby team in Las Vegas?
Sport, though. I love all that collegiate stuff and the support and the alumni. I love all that Americans. I think you'd have great athletes.
There's a lot of mafia in Las Vegas, so Sean. Don't want to get tangled up with that.
Watch True Romance.
Have you watched The Hangover, mate? Have you watched The Hangover?
Yeah, you and Shane in a hotel room with a tiger. That could easily happen.
It doesn't have to be Vegas, mate. With Shane, I can tell you.
Tigers love Shane. They hate cinnamon.
Yeah. Ammanford. You get a tiger from somewhere.
Very good.
Back on the Tiger King, aren't we?
Yeah.
Oh, Josh Button. There you go. G'day, Josh. I jump on their podcast occasionally, the Bats and Balls podcast. There you go. Penrith out of the Sydney's West. So they've just been allowed. They were kicked out of the Shute Shield a couple of years ago, and they're back in for this year now. The Emus. Emu Burger is one of the great club feeds of all time.
Emu Burger.
The Emu Burger. Oh, it's called the Emu Burger because they're the Penrith Emus. I think it's actually beef.
Because there's a lot of us
To
here
try
going,
emu, then.
You can eat emu. You can eat emu.
I thought you could.
It's like
chicken.
Stupid, but it's like turkey. It's a lot. It's
Oh, right.
closer to turkey than chicken, Sweeney, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had an emu sausage before.
Easy.
Yeah. I got the boners.
it's nearly 11 o'clock, I suppose. So.
Which people are allowed to drink from 6 o'clock in England, Adam. So we can,
See that offload from the scrum half, lovely. Kurandrani.
He takes him stopping. He looks like he's lost a bit of weight, Kurandrani.
Oh, this guy looks like a bit of a monster, Sweeney.
Folau Fainga, he's a try-scoring machine. So I'll see if I can find the numbers, but he has broken some sort of record.
He's definitely been the most eye-catching so far in this game, because this game so far has been it's moved up and down, but it hasn't really had a flow.
No.
Look at this offload, lovely up the side door, control. Fainga, I just had a quick look before the game. He was odds on with bookies to score a try today.
Really?
Yeah. So he scored the equal second most try when the competition was suspended. He scored in 4 straight games, dating back to the semi last year. Only 3 players. He's aiming to become the first forward in Super Rugby history to score in 5 straight games on separate occasions. So he just did that. So
that shows it's not just at the back of a maul either, is it?
No.
Only 3 players: Tim Horan, Julian Severe, and Israel Folau have done that.
Wow, and that's a list.
So Folau Fainga is on that list. There you go.
Jeez. Yeah, but like Sean was saying now, at the back of mauls now, hookers, their try numbers are up massively, aren't they? The last 5 seasons.
Yeah, we got Dweber at the Cheetahs for us in his Pro 14, high try scorer. Who's the boy at Benetton had?
Christian Dacey scores a lot as well.
Yes, I know the guy you're talking about. Faimea, I think. At Benetton. Sean Cronin.
I think Sam Parry gets a lot from those sprays.
Ken Owens Ken Owens scores a few.
But you know what it is, though? It's just hookers hanging around the back of mauls. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Hookers
well, they're often the first point.
Have a little.
But aren't they? Isn't it statistically that they are the first receiver from the catch? That's why, because they loop round. So if it goes straight through, they get the try, don't they?
Well, last to arrive, isn't it? Because they've thrown the ball in.
Last to arrive, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if you could, and again, this is only something if you can find out.
Oh dear.
What the aim of the play was, because most of the time you watch, you don't know what the call is. But I'd love if somebody could give you the percentage accuracy for hookers when they're throwing in and they know the play is designed to get them over the line, compared to when it's supposed to be getting somebody else over the line.
It in.
So calls that are directed to go towards the backs, 75%. Calls for the hookers, 98%.
Very true.
I used to Corabetti without the beard.
I know. I just
Looks
had to do
weird.
a double take.
Yeah, because I was looking up and I was thinking, who's that? Oh, it's Corabetti.
Clean shaven. Everyone else is throwing mows and looking horrendous. Yeah. Corabetti's gone the
other way.
Clean shave, yeah.
Because he had a full-on beard, didn't he? Like,
it was a big bushy one.
It was a big one, yeah.
Grizzly Adams.
I had a shave with a fresh blade yesterday. There are a few more reassuring feelings you can have than just a blade straight out of the packet.
You can tell.
You can tell. The blade all over, Adam. Actually, you the blade all over
on the top.
Yeah.
So lockdown.
I thought you were looking particularly shiny this morning, Adam.
Adam's after raise. Then want some stuff off Gillette. Look, drop that in.
There we go. So we've got half time. 19-6. decent effort. I suppose for people who are watching, if you've been used to watching the Kiwis with us over the last couple of weekends, this is probably not as as high end as we've become used to. But I mean, look, there's lots of reasons in play for that. But it's been interesting to see. We haven't seen a 50-22 or 22-50 actually executed here. So despite our excitement during the week,
I tell you what's quite interesting is that the Rebels, so after, well, let's call it 40 minutes, just 71 meters carried. And I know you shouldn't overly rely on meters carried, as we've discussed before. But to be under, I'd say 150 is a bit of a worry.
What's the territory stats, though, Paul?
The territory is where are we?
57.
53-47 possessions. It's reasonably, it's sort of equitable. The penalties are 8 and 8 each, which is about, well, it's slightly high probably, but not as high as you saw in
for half a game.
For half a game, yeah. Because the first weekend we were looking at 30 between the two in Kiwi Super Rugby, and that's heading towards that now. 15 each.
Yeah, there was 27 in the game last night. There were 27.
Yeah, there we are.
Last night. But the thing is, this game has felt a lot slower,
Much slower.
The momentum has kind of stopped a lot in this game, whereas last night it felt like it flowed a bit better. I wonder whether that's the way it was refereed. Nick Berry did play along advantages last night, I thought.
Man, what you've seen, a game and a half. Who are you tipping this early? Who's the
Brumbies are still very strong, but I really think the Queensland Reds, they've just got a bit of grit about them.
Brad Thorne.
Brad Thorne.
He if there's one guy that can instill a bit of grit, it's Brad Thorne. I'd be interested to see how the Western Force go next week. That's going to be a really interesting one. I hope they go well. I don't particularly hold high hopes, but I hope that they go well. They deserve it. They've got a really a coherent squad. They've got a lot of guys who've been together for quite a few years. So that will count for something, I think.
And they've got a point to prove, haven't they? Let's face it, they will want, they'll be playing for a lot more than pride, those boys.
Absolutely. They've got actually, John O'Lance, I watched a interview with him this morning, and he's just signed for them, playing fly half for them, you'd assume. And he said that there's a big chip on the shoulder of not just the players in WA, but every supporter.
Yeah.
A giant chip sitting on their shoulder.
Yeah, and the chief exec and everybody.
Big time.
I've likened Sean to like one of those really high-end housewives of Beverly Hills. He's the one. He's always on the latest diet. He's always the best dressed. He's always been out in the sun. All this sort of stuff. He's taking it to new levels. He's just done a costume change.
I thought I saw him. I thought I saw him
straight. I've gone off piece, right? So. I've changed codes. I've gone rugby league, but it's the Aussie theme. The story behind this is when I went out to play in Australia. I got family out there. My mother's first cousin is the legendary Keith Barnes. People in the UK wouldn't know too much about him. He emigrated at 14 with his family to Wollongong. Went on to become Golden Boots Barnes, captained Australia in the late 50s, became the coach and the team manager for the Kangaroos, and then he became a commentator like Swain and the chief executive of the Balmain Tigers. So I used to work in the Balmain Leagues Club. They've amalgamated now and become the West Tigers, but this is what he gave me to come home. My Balmain Tigers. So I thought with the Aussie theme, second half, I thought I'd do that. How's that?
You could genuinely do like an hour podcast on your tops. Just get one out and then say, "This is from here. I got this one."
Like Mr. Ben.
2 weeks ago, Swain, he got a All Blacks top out signed by Jonah Lomu and Christian Cullen.
Yeah, I had a guess at the signatures. I got it wrong.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot.
I had a bottle of Fernet as a prize.
Yeah. Oh, mate, that's a magnificent. The West Tigers are actually playing right now. They're playing as we speak. Yeah, they're playing against Penrith or Penrith, as you got to pronounce it with 2 Fs, not a TH. If you're from out there, and which Josh is, who's watching. Hey, Josh, 6-0 to the Panthers over the West Tigers. Oh, you know what? I went to Balmain Leagues Club once before it's actually closed now, and I played in a poker tournament there just for a laugh. And on the table that I was on was the great Cliff Lyons. Do you guys ever heard of Cliff Lyons? He's a wonderful, a legendary rugby league player down here, and he was sitting on the table that I was playing at. I had to pinch myself. It was one of the best. He's a Manly Sea Eagles legend, nice. Cliffy Lyons.
Yeah, I got. Can you imagine being with Barnesy? I got to meet Mal Meninga at the Balmain Tigers at the time. Were people like Benny Elias, Paul Siren, and Blocker Roach. Darren Clark played there. Wayne Pearce. All these guys. Ellery Hanley and Sean Edwards both went down to play for the Balmain Tigers. It was the team. Paul Courier, remember, fullback from Widnes, him. But yeah, it was the team. It was just an amazing time. 1990, 91, around then.
Who did Jeff play for down there?
He played for the Bulldogs, Canterbury.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, he's one of the greats, Jiffy, isn't he?
He is. Yeah.
89 grand final is widely known as one of the greatest grand finals in the NRL down here. It was the Tigers v Canberra, and I think, I think, it was one of the greats. Canberra won, I believe.
Laurie Daly.
Yeah.
Mal Meninga. Who's the guy that played lock? He was outstanding.
Gary Belcher.
He's the fullback.
Big Jackson.
Oh, the lock. Come on, for Canberra Raiders. He was.
Clyde.
Bradley Clyde. That's him.
Yeah.
We are off piece now.
We're really off piece.
But talking about NRL, are there any big NRL targets for the Union in Australian rugby now? Have they got their eyes on one they want to bring in? They've normally got one, haven't they?
I'll tell you what, there is a kid who's 16 at the moment.
Right.
And he's about to sign $1 million contract with South Sydney, and he's playing rugby union. And he is he's playing rugby union at the moment for school.
Right.
And he's about to sign $1 million a year for 8 years, I believe. Suaili, I think is his name. Joseph Suaili. Yeah, Joseph Suaili. His name is a schoolboy kid, teenage sensation.
Right.
And gun rugby union player. And rugby actually tried to keep him. They had a real red-hot crack at keeping him, but then all the COVID happened, and now he's about to sign for rugby league. It's a real shame.
Man.
That's insane at 16 years of age.
I know. You've got to take the money, though, at that age, haven't you? You could break your leg next week.
You can see why sometimes in other codes, how guys can get distracted off the field at a very young age, because if you're giving somebody that much money at that age, that's a job in itself to make sure that you keep them focused and on track and get the best out of the athlete over those, at least those first 3-4 years. You know what I mean? And we even see guys in rugby union up here who are hot in school and they're hot in under 20s, and it never translates. And some of them just like being a bit of Jack the Lad as well, which doesn't help. And Joe's one who strikes me as well. And I remember speaking to him about this, and he was very, very candid about it. Was Robin Copeland, who's now gone to one of the French clubs. He was at Connacht, Munster. He was at Cardiff Blues.
At Blues, yeah. He did well at Blues.
He was in the academy at Leinster, and he just didn't like it. And when he got money in his pocket, he'd like to go for a few pints. And he just quit on professional rugby, just didn't suit him, was playing All Ireland League. He was playing second row and was top try scorer because he was just that much of an athlete. God. Probably a bit like yourself, Swaino. But he gets a move out of the AIL, goes over to play, I think, for Rotherham.
That's right. Yeah, it was.
And he went from Rotherham to Cardiff Blues.
He was fantastic.
He does brilliantly for Blues, enough to get him on the Irish radar. So he moves to Munster with the thought process being, well, if I'm playing in Ireland, I have a better chance of getting called up for Ireland. I think he got into one squad and then it didn't really materialize. But there are a lot of guys in the pro game who can kind of not take your traditional path. and they can get it out of their system early. But I don't know how you get it out of your system if you got £1 million every year going into your bank account.
I remember one summer Philo Tia saying to us, got this kid, he's in our family cultural sort of community group. He could be anything, he could be any, how old is he? I think he might have been maybe 17 at the time, 16, whatever. Like a lot of rugby league clubs sniffing him, there's French clubs sniffing at him. And it was a bit of a punt, really, didn't know anything about a youngster. We had a lot of sort of back rows at the time and centres. No, I did pass. Are you sure? I'm really close to this kid, and every no, nothing anyway. Sonny Bill Williams.
No, can you imagine? Yeah, he could have moved in the Mumbles at the age of 17.
Sean, I wouldn't mention that if we're trying to get you a gig in Australia.
my recruitment strategy.
I'm gonna
really failed.
We're going to need a new ad campaign to nullify what you just said there.
I wasn't making the big decisions at those times in those days.
It's easily done, though. How would you know what Sonny Bill Williams is going to be in it at 16? It's.
Oh yeah,
I think the indications were there, mate.
Or were they there? Were they? Right.
At Joseph Suwali, the South Sydney Rabbitohs have outlaid $1.7 million, and it's going to be a 3-year deal. He can't be registered until August 1st, though. So there's still a chance.
Yeah, get him out.
Rugby, get him involved.
Find a scandal.
See the leagueies, they're not shy of putting them in, are they? At 16, 17.
That's right. There's quite a few NRL players at the moment who playing Origin footy and really really top level guys who played schoolboy rugby, and they're just ones that got away. That they'll probably there's a famous story. Angus Crichton, who plays for the New South Wales Blues and for the Roosters, was told when he was just coming out of school that he probably won't play first grade for a couple of years. When he went and sat down with the Waratahs, and then he was told by the South Sydney Rabbitohs that he'll play first grade when he's ready, and he went and signed for the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
There you go.
Yep.
What a difference!
It was a small conversation and a huge mistake.
You're good enough. You're old enough, aren't you?
Yeah, I agree.
I think this kind of makes me think back to as well. Like, we were talking about the semi-pro or the lower level competitions you've got in Australia, Swaino, and we were talking about Mitre 10 Cup in New Zealand. I think what can help and not make such a big difference, I think, between the competitions that we've got in Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, is that naturally, because of the population makeup, you've just got a lot bigger guys. And to me, that's where I think the danger is in dropping guys down up here, because we don't have giants, these genetic giants left, right, and center in our population. So you'd be a really, really good player, but you're only ever going to be 13 stone because you're playing semi-pro. And if you think about your average international center, he's probably going to be 15, 16 kgs, depending on the style of player. And that's before we even get into the front rows. Do you know what I mean? And I just think, that's where I think maybe when you've got such a diverse population like you've got in Australia, when you've got such Polynesian influence in the population.
We got a 50-22?
Yes, we have.
Yes.
No.
Oh, no. Must have back in again.
Pass back in again.
Oh,
hang on, there's a bit of confusion.
He's asking, why isn't it 50-22? Bad moustache.
Yeah. Facial hair. Now get back. I'm not telling you again.
And I'm overruling it. Yeah.
He's looking like Chopper Reid, isn't he?
Do you know what's interesting though? That's twice that's happened now, and it's almost like they haven't been told that you can't pass back in, or just because he looked genuinely stunned then, didn't he?
Yeah, but I think maybe they've been so excited by the idea. If we got a break here, they've been so excited about the idea of winning back that possession with the kick. They've probably forgotten what's bread and butter to everything is, you can't keep everything too.
Oh, there he is.
Wouldn't pass.
Tom Wright.
That's
a lovely break. Didn't he play in the centre in the 20s World Cup, Sweeney?
Good try.
He played at 12 outside.
12, didn't he?
Yeah. And Tom Wright, he's an ex Manly Sea Eagles player, so he's come across to the good side.
Mate,
Yeah.
well, if you had to choose, you go to Manly and play, wouldn't you? God, dear me. It's where Clive Woodward went to play, actually. Oh,
Did he?
Manly or Canberra. What do you reckon?
Oh, gee, mate, is there a conversation there? I mean, come on.
As long as he's playing for the Marlins, not the Sea Eagles, I'd be happy.
Okay.
The Marlins are they're an interesting bunch. They're great humans down there at the Manly Marlins, and Clive Woodward played there. You're right.
So this guy, Lolesio, who's playing 10, he played centre in the World 20s Championship last year.
You just bumped a lock.
Yeah, and the year before. You've got a guy called Will Harrison played last night, and then some back rowers, Wilson and Fraser McWright, who Swain and I were really lauding. He's your next Hooper Pocock. Well, now, he's good enough now. He's probably going to be sprungboard into the Wallabies. And then there are others. Nwanga Nidawasi. And among others, there's the boy at the fullback was a real good player as well. So they got loads coming through.
Mm.
I'm enjoying Sean trying to get his tongue around some of these names, because I was getting a lot of it
tricky though, isn't it?
Do some of those trickier Welsh pronunciations. So
well, we should mention we've got Brian Evans from your favourite place in Wales, Adam. Do you want to give it a McGeady crack?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, so it's Aberystwyth. Brian's joined us again. And we got Josh Button, who's obviously Swainy's mate. And Michael Jenkins mentions a lovely point that we should raise here. A happy 50th birthday to Scottish Lions legend Doddy Weir, and wish him all the best.
Yeah, happy birthday, Mr. Weir.
Unreal.
Boys,
look at him.
Can we see any comeback here for the Rebels? I don't think so. Getting out of third gear here, and they've just got control. And they've got the touches when they need it.
I think it's like we watched the Blues. We watched the Blues Highlanders, and we were suggesting that the Blues had that little bit of X factor quality to finish, and it just seeming that the Rebels are huffing and puffing a little bit, but when it's needed, they've got a little bit of quality. The Brumbies, haven't they?
And even in this period now, which I'm now from this point on going to call Holley time, right? So it is. Yeah, so Sean made a really good point that a couple of maybe last week or the week before, that it's this period now that is the transition and tempo change. And if you're going to, make a little comeback, it does tend to happen now.
So I'll predict there won't be a try before 60 minutes, right? So I'll just stick it out there now. There won't be a try now before 60 minutes.
In Holley time.
In Holley time, yeah.
Right out.
I don't want to. I know that the Rebels.
Two tries after 60.
Yeah, I'm going to go against that bet too, just so I can get another point back. Swaino, I'm 16-2 down on predictions against Sean.
It's been blown. It's been blown in the.
Oh, jeez, Sean, what do you? I wouldn't like to be that scrum half in your Monday morning analysis meeting today.
Are they running too close to their shoulders there? They all seem
I think it was great track back. What we tend to do is watch the attacking team there. If you watch the defenders, the guy that made the hit on him, he didn't follow the ball carrier. He followed the scrum half. It was brilliant play, really. So he got it man and ball from behind.
Oh, turnover.
I just think his skills have let him down in a couple of opportunities for the Brumbies when they've been on a counter attack, and really that's what you'd expect as a strength from a scrum half. Is that he's
that's the thing. It's a skill position, isn't it? 9.
Yeah.
Well, this is crying out for a Fainga maul try here now, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Referee, that's terrible decision, referee.
So I know, just wondering. I can kind of see a bit of it in the crowd. I noticed it yesterday. I know some of these teams play in bigger stadiums and stuff like that. I know Brumbies haven't exactly been attracting fans in there, hundreds of thousands in the last couple of seasons. But people seem spaced out, so presumably social distancing still par for the course in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they've opened up. I think it depends where you are, which state. I think Queensland was you can have 25% of your stadium open. So that's why I think they would have maxed that out last night. I'd say the Queensland Reds at Suncorp Stadium, and then it's probably the same here in Canberra, to be honest. Actually, interestingly, and I don't know that the Rebels will really be looking for any excuses, but the Rebels have had their lives turned upside down a little bit in that there's been a big outbreak of COVID down in Victoria, and they've locked it down. And basically, if you're from Victoria now, you can't go into any other states unless you quarantine. So the Rebels actually last week smartly got out of there, seeing what was happening. They got out of there, and they've been in Canberra for over a week now. So they've been away from their families and what have you. And they're going to have to play their game next week in Sydney, it looks like. They were meant to be playing back in Melbourne against the Reds. It looks like they'll be playing at Brookvale, which is up on the Northern Beaches. Look, I know that they wouldn't be looking for any excuses, but it hasn't been a smooth period of time for the Rebels leading into this first game.
One other thing I wanted to mention, just given Paul mentioning it, was Holley time. So we are going to start venturing into that part of the game. We're going to see a lot of replacements. Usually we see a change at the halfbacks. And Paul, the scrum half for the Rebels, Ryan Lawrence, I think is his name. Probably botched that one as well. You've not mentioned his quads and his tight shorts. I thought that was your area of expertise. Just check
I've got a man crush list, Sweno.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so it used to be Hadley Parks because of his passing. Yeah. Now Caleb Clark's gone up to number 1 now on the man crush list. So it fluctuates a lot every 7 days. Will Jordan's moving up it.
If you Google Ryan Lowren's photo, there's a photo of him that went a bit viral recently. With the gun show, you'll be able to see it. As he's catching a tennis ball, you'll see it if you type in Ryan Lowren's photo.
He's South African born, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. He was at the Western Force for a few years, and before they got kicked out of Super Rugby, and then he's done pretty well to come across to the Rebels.
Of course.
Yeah,
he's a mental Nick, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think I found the photo you're talking about.
Oh, there's going to be a shared screen here.
The thing is, do you need to have that low body fat to play rugby?
Well, I played rugby and I didn't look like that.
Sean, seriously, you don't need.
I'm doing it the wrong way round. I'm the same.
But you don't need to have like 4% body fat to play rugby, do you? It's probably more harmful. Don't you need a little bit of padding to?
Well, I mean, if you've got low body fat, it means you're pretty muscular, so that's pretty good padding as well. I mean, look, it's hard for forwards. The forwards need the weight, so it's hard for front 5 players to be ripped because they need that extra weight for pushing and mauling and carrying. So I think conditioners will give them, depending on their body type, depending on their training, their position, they will give them, targets. Clearly, you don't want like Adam Jones and Richard Hibbard, big guys, right? Carry weight, strong guys, but you don't want them to have excessive weight because they've got to get round the field as well and hit rucks and make tackles. So it's the balance, mate. But if you're Shane Williams, Tommy Bowe, Caleb Clark, you want to be a racing snake, don't you? You want to be muscular, powerful, strong, and lean.
Yeah. Off the
I've got the picture, boys. So you just got to give me a minute or two to do the text, get it branded up.
He is an insane Nick, that lad.
In the meantime, because we were talking about Sean O'Brien earlier on, so I've rescued an image that was doing the rounds. Recently. There he is, moving to blindside flank.
He's been lifting. Look at his neck.
Yeah, it looks like he's about to run out and grab the ropes in a wrestling ring and shake him up and down like Ultimate Warrior.
He looks like an iguana. He looks like an iguanodon.
And we were saying he's about 6'3", Adam, isn't he? We were saying he's if first line out in the opposition's half is going flat off the top to Johnny
Straight down the
running a
middle.
hard line.
But you know the thing though is with Sexton as well. I'd say he has very rarely had an opportunity where he hasn't been rehabbing.
Yeah,
to
that's
actually
true.
Just focus
Yeah.
on trying to put on, and it's not just for show. I mean, some of these guys are just putting it on to be a bit more durable. And I think at Johnny's stage in his career, he's not trying to be the fastest guy over the first 15 meters to make those breaks. He's just trying to make himself a bit more durable, I would say.
Yeah.
Don't
Do you know,
forget,
weirdly? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, don't forget those 10s. People like Johnny, he's had some concussion issues. He's had injury issues. They know, they're not stupid, that opposition teams and coaches are coming down their channel. So he's doing that to give himself the best opportunity to make good, effective tackles and not get hurt. So fair play to him.
Yeah. There was always one player, one of my favourite players of all time, who Sean coach, Gavin Henson. And I always felt that he was, you obviously know a lot more, but I always felt he was a bit too muscular for his frame. Is it just, was he too big or not really,
No.
Sean? He was. He could carry that.
Gav was one of the most professional guys in the environment. He had issues off the field, but in the environment and ahead of his time. So in the early days of regional rugby, he'd be bringing his own food. He'd have his own masseur that he would pay for, specialist doctors, and a consummate professional in that. So he knew the game. I used to give them review sheets, right, to review their performance, and right in those days, various aspects of the game and on the opposition, so on. Gav would be in there for an hour, and he'd fill the sheet in, but he'd turn it over, and all the back would be filled in as well. And he didn't pull any punches. I've saved a couple of them for nostalgia. But hello, here he goes. He got the ball.
Corabetti.
One ball. Oh,
they were on the ropes.
So there was never an issue of him being too muscular for his frame. He was.
Here's our man.
Not at all.
He's still a great nick now.
Yeah, I know. I saw him the other day. He looks exactly the same, weirdly, just a bit grayer.
I think it was more top 2 inches with Gav. He needed to be 100%, so he picked up a lot of niggles and injuries, and therefore didn't play as many games as perhaps he could have or should have.
I got it.
I'll wait for this attack to end before I think we might need a break and play before I show you this picture of Mr. Lawrence.
They've come back well here, the Rebels. They were on the ropes there. They got a couple of strong penalties, and they've really done well.
This is Holley time prowess.
But this is exactly what we're talking about, is that these teams, and again, we saw it in Super Rugby in the last couple of weeks as well, like, you've got to be effective. There's no point being in the 22 here for 3 minutes, forcing a few penalties, but you've got to get over the line here. I must say, from a tournament point of view, I love the milk bottle branding for the post pads.
Yeah, well, they used to have Canberra milk across them. Yeah. So this is the new law, guys. This will be a dropout now, a goal line dropout, as opposed to a 5-meter scrum.
Yeah, held up over the line.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah,
I think you're not rewarding. I mean, how are we incentivizing attacking play by saying if you get held up?
I think you're asking them to be a bit more creative. I think you're asking sides to, like you just said, rather than slug away with 3 men latching on the carries, you're asking people to be a bit more creative and
not look for the penalty, because they're always looking for the penalty there, aren't they? More often than not, waiting for an offside, like 10 phases.
I can understand it if for a knock-on by the attacking team, you said it's a dropout, because what you're doing there is you're just removing the need to have a scrum, because people are just going to throw it back to the end of the try area and just clear it anyway. So I get that. But for the attacking team, yeah.
But I suppose what they're saying is, it's not like you're going back to the halfway line, is it? Look, they're already back there now after 2 carries.
Yeah.
So I think what they're trying to say is take more of a risk when you're in the red zone. Because they're not getting massively punished, are they? It's not like it's game over and they're in their own half. So I can sort of see the logic.
Last night was interesting because we only saw the one dropout last night, and the Reds had a very dominant scrum early on, and so it almost would have been a let-off for the Waratahs to have the dropout rather than go to the scrum.
Yeah.
But at the other end of the field, earlier in the game, the Reds were rewarded for having a dominant scrum because there was a penalty and they opted for the scrum. So I think it's giving teams the option in that respect.
Right.
And it's speeding the game right up. It's stopping, having 3 resets on a goal line and just wasting that time. It's just starting the game again quickly.
And like Sean always says, coaches will adapt. So if in the next few weeks they do start spreading the ball on the try line, defenses will logically have to spread. Then you get more gaps inside, don't you? So then you might just see faster tries as a result. So you never really know how it's going to work.
Absolutely.
I think it is cat and mouse, mate. So you be defensively, if you've got Brumbies attacking like that, Rebels, you'd be saying, right, we need to get numbers under the ball, hold them up over the line because we get the drop kick out. Well, naturally, that's going to leave space on the outside, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you'll see those little kicks because they can't mark in the 22.
There we go.
Rugby league style. So
and then it's the risk of them knocking on top, isn't it? So you've got, it's the numbers.
James Reed says, yes, big fan of this rule. It rewards a tough defence and stops the team being pummeled over and over again by pick and go.
Yeah.
Thank you, James.
And do you know what? There's also a player safety issue there, isn't there? Because less rucks you've got, less contacts you've got, less clean outs. So,
this looks good.
Can you imagine if that was in play? Do you remember that Six Nations game?
They're over
in Paris.
Oh, here we go.
Got one. Right, Paul, you've got one back on. Sean,
got one back. There was 2.5 minutes to go before Holley time was over. So I'll give you that.
16-3.
I'll reinforce my point when we watch the replay now. Watch who the key guy is in here. Watch the key guy going in.
Who are we looking for? Timua.
Oh, Bill Meeks joins.
Oh,
there he goes. Watch his leg drive. There he goes. Watch the leg drive. Look at him go. Look at his legs. Look at his legs.
Going like hell.
They make the difference, the backs.
Who scores it in the end?
A good added.
For the wingers in there as well.
I can never tell about these ball conversations.
Yeah, he spins out.
If Sean is just trying to troll a load of his former players who played in the pack.
Yeah. Andrew Bishop won't like this.
I'd show it sometimes as a bit of a wind up. I'd show because you'd have, when I was before I was head coach, I'd be, primarily concerned with defense and then the backs, coaching the backs. So we'd have a backs meeting and then you'd have a forwards meeting. And I'd sit in sometimes on the forwards meeting and they'd be soaping themselves down about maul tries and big scrums and this, that, and the other, right? So when it came to the team sort of preview, then I'd always slip in and I'd set the backs up because the forwards be doing that. We'd be having a coffee somewhere down the coffee shop, and I'd show that and I'd go and I'd highlight slow-mo, circle. Look at Sean Connor here. Look at Andrew Bishop. Look at the leg drive going in. They make the difference. And the forwards, we look at him as if to say, "Is he serious?"
He's having a laugh. That's brilliant. And Sean O'Connor, just for Swaino, he's out heavy, about 11.5 stone soaking wet.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Backs coach for Russia now.
Yeah, he's doing well, isn't he? Actually, coaching wise.
Right, Paul. We got kick off here, so we 11 points, 24-11.
That's a good carry.
Our man is still there. Are you ready for the big reveal, Paul?
Get him on.
There you go.
Look at that.
Ryan
Wow. Fair play to the boy.
Ripped.
I bet he does. He must drink a cup full of water a month to look like that.
That's not a tennis ball, by the way. That's a volleyball. So yeah, I wonder if I leave this up, if our viewership will start going northwards. Oh yeah,
we'll have a few more. We will have a few more joining us for that.
Yeah, that's insane. That's probably the most conditioned rugby player I've ever seen.
Have you seen the nick that Peter Stringer is still in?
Oh, yeah.
And I think he's doing his own PT business and stuff like that.
It's 4%, isn't he?
It's great sessions as well, Strings has got. He puts them all out, he describes them, and he videos them all. And, fair play to him. He's looking in great shape.
Great haircut.
Have you ever seen that photo of the Stringer family, all the men, and they all look the same?
They're all the same haircut? That's a great haircut.
Well, I'll tell you this, right? So, Peter Stringer's uncle was the club secretary at my club in Dublin, Wanderers, George, and I went down to a what game was it? I went down to Dolphin rugby game down in Cork one night with a friend of mine, and we're in the bar afterwards. And obviously Cork is where Peter Stringer's family are from and all the rest of it. And I saw this man and I went, "Geez, what's George Stringer doing?" And I was like, Wanderers aren't playing here or whatever. And I walked up and I just started chatting away to him, and he's like, "Sorry, what's your name?" I was like, "Adam from the club." He's like, No. You think I'm George?" And I was like, "Yeah." It was Peter Stringer's dad. So his dad is a twin. But like even at the age of like late 60s, these two guys, same haircut, same mustache, same absolutely.
And the brothers look the same. So I think there are 3 Stringer brothers, are there?
Yeah.
And they all look, so they're all the same height. They've all lost their hair. They all look like
You got to think as well. I bet they're all called strings.
yeah, strings. Yeah.
Right, strings?
Tennis strings, squash strings. You have to give him a different one.
Paul, is
Fair
that
play to
your
the Rebels.
local community?
Say it again.
Fair play to the Rebels. They're coming back here, Swain, aren't they? Fair play to them.
It looks like there's a couple of guys. Tamu is one of them. Really starting to call the shots, taking control, flattening the lineup a bit. He's a try-scoring machine. Andrew Kellaway. He's been the fire. They call him down here.
Oh,
the red hair.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
We
so
started
Aussie,
calling
that.
him the NRC a few years ago. I don't know if it's stuck, but we're going to keep going with it.
Anyway, there's a renaissance of red-headed players in Kiwi and Australian Super Rugby. There's stacks of them playing down in New Zealand.
Yeah. You reckon they're all just love children of Paul Tito?
They're in again.
Oh, they've got to be, yeah.
Game on.
Here we go.
That is
Super
outside
time.
Holley time. That is outside Holley time.
Oh, that is just outside Holley time. Well, I tell you what, we've got a game now, boys.
Best coach team in Australia. You're in the coaching box right now for the Brumbies. Sean, what's the conversation?
Get it down there. No, it's. I think they've given a few penalties away. They've kicked poorly. So I think you can see, as Swaino says, Tumua is just sort of starting to dictate the game. Look how flat he gets you in behind, calling the shot. So we just got to keep a hold of the ball, boys. Play it in the right areas. Apply the pressure. We're the home team. We've got the lead. Try and squeeze a penalty, I'd be saying now, because it's 24-18. Here comes the kick. They're probably going to kick this 24-20. We need to score next. So it's about territory and possession and get in the next score, whether it's 3 or 5. That would be my sort of.
What's the best way to squeeze a penalty? Is it with loads of breakdowns and rucks? Is that just to keep wrapping?
You run the risk, don't you? Under these new laws, you're running the risk a little bit here. I think you just got to be smarter and play away from the strengths.
Right.
Lovely.
Oh, that's a good kick.
I'm about 2 seconds behind you guys, and it's killing me.
Oh, sorry, Ad.
What's quite interesting about Tamua's kick? Because most goal kickers have a predictable arc, don't they? So it'll either be right to left or a slight fade. Whereas Tamua's changes almost every strike. So
it's a bit
like a light fade.
It's a bit like my golf swing, mate. It starts off. The ball starts off in exactly the trajectory you want it to go, and then you see it change direction. You think, how on earth did that happen? So I hope I don't play like that this afternoon.
No. Say for instance, Lee Halfpenny's always got a slight fade, isn't he? Just always left to right a little bit, whereas he goes both ways to Moa, which you don't often see.
Well, Richie Moonga this morning was just like straight.
He's
right, and he was pinging them over from either side of the pitch as well.
Do you know what? You can see why they need him in the team with Barrett's kicking, because it does collapse sometimes, doesn't it?
But you know something? We were having this conversation when we were talking about Barrett recently, and to me, it's something that I think we didn't really we talked about his goal kicking, but to me, his career is like, if he could have kicked properly, the Lions would have lost that series in 2017, particularly that last. And the difference was. And I'll go back to the point I make. I think fullbacks and wingers, you haven't got a huge amount else to do. Practice goal kicking. Because Elliot Daly banging one over for the Lions from his own half was incredible in that test. Yeah. And then the other side, you had Barrett missing, kicks that he should be getting in his sleep, you know. And I think
Yeah.
it's a hugely valued skill for the likes of Sean, but I think some players don't understand the value it could add to them for their entire career. Because
Yeah, totally.
if Lee Halfpenny is 75% fit, but he can catch the ball and he can kick it over the posts, guess who's getting in the team every single time?
Always.
Let's again, Andy's not here, so we can talk Lions selections. Right? You were picking a fullback for the Lions for a year's time, and you're a choice between, you know, Lee Halfpenny, but he's got a few niggles, but he's able to kick. It's not impacting that. Or you want to pick somebody like Jordan Larmour or somebody or Stuart Hogg or whatever. Hoggy can kick them. We know that. But like, if it's a Lions game, you are definitely saying, I need. Where's my Neil Jenkins? Where's my Johnny Wilkinson? Who is the guy who's, because even don't forget, like Johnny Sexton wasn't really sort of seen as the frontline guy to kick for the Lions either. Do you know what I mean?
No,
So
I think you're blessed there. I think you've got the potential of a kick in 10, wherever that might be.
Yeah.
You got the option to play Farrell at 12, who's got a pretty good kicking percentage. You mentioned Daly, you know. So I think, you know, Gats has had the luxury there on the last tour of doing that. That allows you then to pick a Stuart Hogg or a Liam Williams. Because I also think to beat the Springboks, you're going to have to score a couple of tries.
Yeah.
I do. So those guys give you that. Hoggy gives you that advantage of the long ranger, like Daly. So there could be one or t'other there at the moment. It's a long way to go, isn't it? But you know, I would say somebody like Biggs he's in a real strong position at the moment, playing the rugby of his life, kicking superbly,
playing well.
If I'm Hoggy or somebody as well, like particularly in the rugby that's going to come up over the next 9 months, and I'm not necessarily talking about just for club, but I'm talking like Six Nations internationals. You know, press your case to kick the ball at test level, because I tell you what, yes, you'll have to score tries against the box, but see, when you play at altitude against the box, you're just going to need to take advantage.
Kicking from the 60s.
You're going to need to be able to kick those points in the final 20. And that could be really interesting in terms of who you select.
I think you're spot on, man. I think you're spot on. No one remembers too much the scores, and nobody remembers too many of the tries. They remember the series result.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. It's all that matters.
Wait, no, was that Sean Byrne in the Rebels?
I thought it was Jeff Parling.
No, it's Sean Byrne.
And
Jeff
Sean
Parling's
Byrne.
there as well. Yeah.
Oh, Jeff Parling's there as well.
Yeah, Jeff Parling is there as well. Yeah, so
nice and few the Premiership and Pro 14 experience in the coaching box there.
How long has Parling's been there for a couple of seasons, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, he actually came down and played. I think
played for a year, didn't he?
For a year or so, and then hung the boots up. And he's been in the coaches box for the last couple of years, and from all reports, done a really good job. And Sean Byrne's fairly new to the attack coach role, but Sean Byrne was actually taken to the World Cup last year with the Wallabies. With the Randwick connection with Czech, I think as well. Right. I think that might have a bit to do with it. Yeah. But he is a really smart guy. Really smart guy. So and Dave Vessels is an up and coming young coach. He's still, and he admits this himself, got a lot to learn about coaching at the top line. He reckons that he's probably he took up the head coaching role of the Force a couple of years early, probably before he was ready. Yeah. I saw an interview with him during the COVID lockdown, and he was penalty. Here we go. Do you kick him? Do you kick the point here? Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Someone's just asked who's winning. Should we give him a quick score check?
24-20 to the Brumbies, but there's a penalty in front of the sticks for the Rebels with 10 minutes on the clock. I think you go to 3.
Got to go for 3.
Yeah, 100%.
Got to go for 3. This is where the Highlanders went wrong. This is where I got one of my points against Sean last week.
Okay.
In the corner. I'm a big fan. I know it's Super Rugby. It's my favorite league, right? I love it. I love the quality of rugby in there.
There's more time, to be fair, on this game. There's like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is the right decision, I think, because they one shot a drop goal away from winning the game.
Yeah. Got to go for the points.
Vessels.
And I just said the Super Rugby is my favorite league. That's my column gone.
Yeah, that's in here. Nice working with you, Paul.
I write a column for the Pro. I used to write a column for the Pro 14, Andrew.
I see.
Yeah,
Well,
tell about a minute ago.
I'm sure there's plenty of opportunity to come and do Super Rugby down here.
Swaino, would you like to write a Pro 14 column?
It was nice. It was nice working on the. I used to love writing for the Pro 14.
Oh god,
lovely.
Dave Vessels, I'm trying to recall just before he took the Rebels job. Had he committed to another team, or was he was in conversations with somebody else? Was it one of the South African teams?
He was actually. There was a bit of chatter at the time. I think about him. He had to make the decision as to whether, because the Force, he was coaching the Force, and then they were kicked out of Super Rugby, and everyone kind of ummed and ahed as to whether they'd stay with the Force and see what this global rapid rugby competition that could get dreamed up, what that might be. So he ended up saying, look, I've got to do what's best for my family. I've got a job offer at the Rebels. I've got to take it. So, it was, gee, that was a hard time here in Australia for Australian rugby. That when the Force got punted from the comp, it was there was a lot of players who, and Perth's it's not an easy place to get to. It's pretty isolated. A lot of guys had moved their families over there, and it was really dark days. And so the Rebels have got a lot of those ex-Force players in their team now.
Now then, is this kickable?
If Reece Hodge was kicking it, I would have said yes.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure it is.
Trust the Brumbies forward power here to get them a little bit of possession in around the 22. I don't know if it's probably, look, it's too early for drop goals, but certainly you can control a bit of clock get
time,
yourself down there, try and draw in the Rebels for a penalty. Maybe this is time for cool heads. But is their forward power in the last 8 minutes the same as we saw in the first 15?
Yeah, Conor McInerney's come on for Folau Fainga. I think he's the reserve hooker for the Brumbies, and he's a handy player. Hails from the Eastern Suburbs Club down here in Sydney.
So
I've been impressed with Noah. I've been impressed with Noah Lolesio. Is that the correct pronunciation of his name, Sean?
Yeah, Lolesio. Yeah,
Lolesio. I was saying Lolesio.
I know it's good. That's the Welsh way. In my head, I would do it that way, Lolesio, but it is Lolesio, isn't it?
Swaino's your man. He's
Lolesio.
Yeah, that's what they're telling me down here.
I always remember when I used to work on a marquee company. There's this place in Mid Wales that I had to go and put a tent up in, and I was told to go to Pen Perelini, right? And it was Pen Perleni. This bloke said it was. He said it's this weird Italian village. I said this can't be a place called Pen Perelini in Mid Wales. Pen Perleni
sounds Italian.
It was, yeah, Pen Perelini.
I remember back in the day when I was working in a newsroom. For whatever reason, Llanelli came up as a discussion point, and it went around the newsroom about 10 times. How do you say it again? Because everyone was saying, it's Llanelli, mate. It's Llanelli.
Llanelli.
And Brumbies have just copped up a penalty here. Really, that's going to be really disappointing. So they've given the Rebels the easy out. They've kicked a touch.
You were right, though. They looked like they were building some real good momentum, and they just got isolated. Took it a bit wider out. Again, I'm questioning a couple of decisions.
Look forward to it.
Sorry, look at 6. Look at the Brumbies 6. Everything was wrong about ruck entry. You can see in that one shot.
Yeah. They're also red hot on the breakdown for this tournament now. One of the directives to the referees has been if the first player that they don't have to survive the clean out now. If they're first there and they get their hands on the pill and they're on their feet, it's a penalty.
But penalty counts so far. Brumbies are 15, Rebels up to 11.
Yeah. And there we go, Rebels crooked throw into the line out now.
That's a shock of a throw, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's bad, isn't it?
And look, I think that penalty to give away was a combination of player being isolated in an
Yeah.
absolute outrageous attempt to try and get into the ruck. But that's nearly just as bad, that throw in there. So
There you go,
great
young
time.
player, little SEO, at 10, stepping up to carry in the 22 on his own there, get himself isolated. They weren't ready for that, were they, the clear out guys? And that's just the thing he's got to develop, the 9 we've seen.
Yeah. I think that's the thing as well, though. The forwards need to also get used to playing with their 10s, and they need to know, what their behaviors are like at different times in the game, and when are they going to take risks, and how, because no matter what level you play at, if you have an understanding of how conservative or how loopy your 10 is, I mean,
I love that. That's the alternative: conservative or loopy.
I played with a guy who was an exceptional individual talent, but was just so rogue and renegade. And he'd have a tendency to just go in the opposite direction to the rest of the back line and stuff like that. But we had a game. It was first against second, and we were down by a couple of points, and we got an attacking scrum just inside the 22, directly in front of the posts. And with a backline move we'd worked on for about 18 months, that was in this situation when we really need to score, we'll all line up behind each other, single file, right. And this will be the call. And
I formation.
Everybody went left, and he went bloody right, and that was toast.
Oh my God! Did you see that maul?
Yeah, the Rebels really went. They went for the push there.
That'll be maul of the season. That was almost uncontested.
Miller time. Hey, so you talk about Holley time. This is Will Miller, and it's Miller time right now. He's up the end. He's they call him he played for Northern Suburbs here in the Shute Shield in Sydney. He's a milk farmer. He's a dairy farmer from down near Berry, and they call him the King of the North because he brought Northern Suburbs their first title. He was captain and took them to their first title in a very long time. So
that's lovely, isn't that gorgeous? 2 of them have fallen, and 3. Oh, you've got 5 Rebels players on the floor essentially after.
It's kind of like you've got to realize, well, what are you coming up against? I mean, if you're not coming up against a good maul defense, then how good is the maul and stuff like that. But it's got to be encouraging, because we always view the Wallabies as not having the strength up front or in the maul to really compete at test level anymore. If you can, I mean, I think throughout the various incarnations of the Irish team over the last decade, between there were even times with Kidney, but particularly under Schmidt, and we've seen Farrell's trying to keep that going as well. A good mauling game will really do, because it'll earn you penalties, and it'll buy up time, it'll buy up territory and stuff like that. And for the Brumbies coaching team, this has got to be I mean, it's been pretty impressive what they've done up front, isn't it?
Yeah, he needs this though. There we are. Too clear now.
Yeah.
I wonder who'll get man of the match. It's
Laurie Fisher.
Yeah, and this spot 1 mile off, can't he?
He's still around, Law.
Yeah.
Who's that on the right for the Brumbies, Swaino, in the coaching box? Younger guy, he was standing up at the laptop.
I think it might have been Rory Murphy. So he's Irish.
I was thinking that. Yeah, I was like, I recognise him.
Yeah, so Rory Murphy, I think he's involved with the forwards. Might even be. I think so. Lord kind of takes on the set piece and the kind of breakdown coaching role, and then Rory Murphy, I believe, is sort of just a more general forwards coach role.
It's not. Do you know what? It's nice to see a bit of youth in a coaching box as well. I mean, it's easy to say that when you're not a fan of the team. But
you're not worried about them winning.
You know what I mean? Like, people bring in young coaches, they don't get results, and then people start saying, "Well, why not hire all these young coaches?"
Nice to see as well some Northern Hemisphere guys.
Yeah.
We've got Mark Jones of the Crusaders now. Roger's been down there. Obviously, we've got those guys we mentioned today: Parley, Sean Byrne. Not Sean Byrne, but
Steve Tandy's been down there.
Steve Tandy was in Waratahs recently. Yep.
That wouldn't even 3 years ago.
Yeah,
particularly in New Zealand, that would never have happened. Whereas it's complete opposite up here in the north.
Ronan O'Gara, he did a little stint down.
That's Roger. That's Roger.
Oh, sorry. I thought
Sean,
you
you're
said
trying
Rod.
to get easy
Be like
score.
you
You're
calling
trying to get
Roger
easy
Federer
score.
Feds, like, you know.
I see. Sorry.
It is a bit
That
of a
told me.
it is a bit of a sore point. Sorry, it is a bit of a sore point here down in Australia that there are a lot of foreign coaches though as well. The coaching pathways here in Australia haven't been great for a long time. So we've had to bring in Kiwi coaches, bring in coaches from the north, and they're really trying to now nurture some good Aussie coaches through. But it's probably we're still a few years off from. When you look at all the Super Rugby franchises, you've got Vessel, who's South African in Melbourne. You've got Rob Penny, who's a Kiwi at the Waratahs. You've got Brad Thorne, who's a Kiwi but kind of Aussie at the Reds. Dan McKellar's an Aussie, and then you've got Tim Sampson over at the Force, who's an Aussie as well. But yeah, 3 out of the 5 franchises are foreign coaches.
Yeah, so full-time guys, Brumbies 31, Rebels 23. Very close right up until the end. Rebels
Good game.
brought through
It was a good game, actually.
Kept it interesting.
Brumbies deserve it, though.
Yeah, I agree. They just had a bit too much dominance. Scored at the right times, So start of the game, scored at the end of the game. Just sort of top and tailed it. Good effort coming back from the Rebels. Scored in Holley time, which is always a mean feat.
Yeah.
But I think it's just about right. Yeah, it's just a bit harsh on the Rebels not getting within 7 points. I suppose there's still a losing bonus point within 7. Swing, is there?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the Brumbies will get the winning bonus point because I think they scored 3 more tries than the Rebels.
Yeah.
So it was 5 tries to 2. Yeah. So
have they named a man of the match? I don't think they do anymore. Do they?
Not on the Fox coverage at the moment, unfortunately. But yeah, they probably will at the ground. I'll jump on the old tweets and see what's going on.
Reaction from
one of the greats, Rod Kafer.
Caves interviewing who's this guy?
Alan Alatoa.
Of course it is.
Oh, good.
Kafe, one of the great men, gents. He's unbreakable when you want to go on the beers with him. I've never seen him
unbreakable.
Unbreakable. He is the invincible man when it comes to the beers.
There we go. I think someone who we should probably owe a beer to here is James Reed. Thanks very much, lads. Great to know you, Swain.
Good summary.
Swing it well this afternoon, Sean. Adam, lovely production. Paul, hard lines on losing the column, but
hey, you can't have it all. That point means more to me. The 16-3.
Thanks to Josh Button too, tuning in, multitasking, watching the Penrith match, and ourselves, James, and everybody else. It's great to have you join us next week.
Thank you.
It's good because we can interact with you all. It's brilliant.
Yeah. What I should have said is it's my favourite style of rugby. Then I could have kept my column.
There you go. Well, I'll tell you what, Paul, you can keep doing the column, just I won't pay you. How about that?
I think that's perfect.
Listen here, Ollie. don't you join in.
There's a raise coming for you soon as well, by the way. This is going to offset the budget.
Well, I really enjoyed that, gentlemen.
Yeah, Strino, I think if you're interested, we'll probably do one of the Kiwi. We'll go back to some of the Kiwi matches as well. So if you want to join us for one of those, there's an open door there for you to be pushed. But this has been really good, and I hope the people watching, because we've certainly learned a huge amount around the backdrop to Aussie rugby and stuff like that. And it's for so many of the people who watch this up north, we're so used to seeing the Aussie players and coaches coming up here playing for our clubs, sometimes even playing for our national teams, although more South Africans these days. South Africans and Kiwis are the import du jour. But yeah, no, I think it's been really, really interesting and fascinating to hear about some of the background. So yeah, we definitely a welcome return if you want us.
Fellas, thank you so much for having me. It's been tremendous. I've really enjoyed it, and happy to join anytime.
Yeah, good to see you, pal. Great to see you.
Great to see you too, mate. Great jerseys as well. Next time I'll have to I'll go to my mate Knockout, who's a Welshman, and see if I can borrow a couple of his jerseys.
What a great nickname.
Knockout.
Knockout.
Sean, I believe you managed to switch your tea time today. So again, using your power of influence in the local community.
Mish, I wish I had, mate. I'm looking out of my window here. It is coming down in straight lines, right? So I'm last out at 1:20. Everybody's had the best of the weather, carded decent scores. Holley's gone out last, coming back like a drone rat with about 18 points in the bag.
In double glove weather. One on the left, one on the right.
Horrendous.
But I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Well, look, after we end the broadcast, Sean, hang on. We'll do our quick debrief and then we'll set you off for your tea time. So to everybody else who has watched and commented, thank you so much. We're going to keep doing this every weekend until nobody watches, because it is proving popular, which is great. So you can catch up with us again Wednesday nights under the sticks on the Guinness Pro 14 Facebook and YouTube channels. But for today, go about, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I'm going to continue to inject live sport into my eyeballs. Formula One coming up soon, and then we've got Manchester United on the Saturday.
That's not sport.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's more live sport from Spain or Italy. So yeah, definitely embracing the return of live sport. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.
He called me cheetah, cheetah, cheetah. Ooh, cheetah, cheetah, cheetah.